Education meeting for the Cedarburg School District, January 21st, 2014, 7 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Cedarburg Board of Education and is a public meeting. Prior notices have been placed in the district, and additional copies were forwarded to the News, Graphic, and Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. At this time, we'd like to move on to item number 3, resolutions and recognitions. Kevin?
There's just a proclamation this week from the governor. Whereas more than 15,000 school bus drivers in the state of Wisconsin travel more than 82 million miles a year and transporting more than 600,000 students to and from school every day. And whereas these drivers and owners and operators of school buses have promoted and practiced the highest standards to assure the protection of their passengers. And whereas the Wisconsin School Bus Association, through its board of directors, pledges its full and dedicated cooperation with the Department of Transportation, the Office of Transportation Safety, Division of Motor Vehicles, the State Patrol, the State Advisory Council of Highway Safety, the Department of Public Instruction, schools, law enforcement agencies, PTAs, and other organizations in promoting public awareness of the importance of school bus transportation. Now therefore I, Scott Walker, Governor of the State of Wisconsin, do hereby proclaim February 10th through 14th, 2014 as School Bus Driver Recognition Week throughout the state of Wisconsin, and I commend this observance to all of our citizens. And it's signed Governor Scott Walker and Secretary of State Douglas O'Fallon.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Anyone at all? Going once, twice? All right, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Dr. Anderson.
The 3 items on the consent agenda include the minutes from the regular meeting December 17th, budget and finance materials, summary accounts, check register, check detail, and I'd like to ask Conrad to review briefly the personnel report.
Personnel report will show you that we had 1 retirement from our professional staff, Patricia Bradburn, effective at the end of this school year. We also had a resignation at the end of the school year from a special education teacher at Webster, Crystal Placek. Robert Stangor, high school teacher, has requested resignation starting at this time, 2nd semester. Whitney Dobson, Lisa Loran, and Cindy Russell are classified employees who have submitted resignations. Wendy Springer will be moving from a 33% full-time equivalent position to the full-time position to replace Robert Stagborn at the high school. And then we also hired a maintenance worker, Martin Olson, as a classified employee. We ask you to approve the retirements and resignations.
Take a motion for the consent.
Move to approve. I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Moving on to reports and recommendations. Dr.
First item is recommendation that the board accepts $4,061.45 donation from the Cedarburg High School PTO for Science, Social Studies, Math Department, Crazy Trades Kits, Chromebooks, Wall Mural Map, Texas Instrument, Navigator devices.
Move to approve. Second that.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
Next recommendation is that the board accept a donation of $7,533 from the Thorson PTO to be used by Thorson Elementary School for the purchase of 27 Chromebooks.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item is recommendation to the board that it accepts $500 anonymous donation to be used by the Cedarburg High School band.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously.
Next item is recommendation to the board that it accepts a $500 anonymous donation to be used by the Cedarburg High School vocal choir.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
Next recommendation is that the Board of Education accepts an $850 donation from Tel Smith Incorporated to be used by the Cedarburg High School Engineering Club for the robotics program.
Move to approve. Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
Next is recommendation that the board accept a $1,000 donation from JW Speaker to be used Cedarburg High School Engineering Club for the robotics program.
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Next is the recommendation that the board accepts a $500 donation from Hepburn Bootstrap Foundation to be used by the Cedarburg High School Community Service Program for sustaining support of the music program.
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Next item is recommendation that the board accept a $500 donation from Mark and Karen Shank to be used by the Cedarburg High School Engineering Club for the robotics program.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries unanimously.
Next recommendation is that the board accept a $3,500 anonymous donation to be used to partially fund the purchase of a new pole vault landing pit for the Cedarburg High School girls and boys track and field teams.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries unanimously. Now on to item J.
I like that part of the
That's the fun part.
Let you speak.
This item is
For Todd.
for Todd.
Thank you very much. In front of you, you have the consortium agreement on the Carl Perkins dollars. This is an annual approval of the board, and the dollars are used to support our career and technical education programs here in the district. This year, we have about $8,600 is earmarked for Project Lead the Way, food science, health occupations, auto, and woods. We use the dollars to purchase equipment and technology and to supplement any other items that are needed to continue with the success of those programs. So we ask that the board accept this consortium agreement and approve it.
So moved.
Motion.
I'll second that.
Motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries unanimously. Item K, revision to policy number 345.6, graduation requirements. Todd.
Thank you. At the previous board meeting, I had shared with you that the state of Wisconsin made a change in the graduation requirements. They increased the math credits required to graduate from 2 to 3, and also did that with science. What I am proposing that there be a change in our policy to address this new law that the state has approved. It starts with this year's freshman class, which is a graduating class of 2016-17. And the policy in front of you, you can see that there's been an addition made, and the change to math and science will increase from 2 credits to 3 credits. It should be noted that about, I think in 2011, we had about 87% of our students already they were taking 3 credits of math and 3 credits of science, and last year it was up to, I want to say, 92%, so it continues to increase. So this adjustment is not going to have any significant ramifications on our students' schedules or their selections at this time. We do anticipate that we will come back in spring to make another adjustment to the policy, because the law does allow us to recognize computer science courses as meeting a math credit, as well as career and technical education courses could meet a math credit. So we're going to look at those courses and see if they fit under that criteria. And the same thing with science, we can have an agriculture course meet the science credit, as well as career and technical education. So we're investigating all of that now, and we'll come back in the spring with some revisions to this policy. But to be in compliance with the law, we went ahead and are suggesting that this change to policy be approved. This would technically be a first reading of the policy. I did share this policy with you at the last meeting. So it's the pleasure of the board how they want to handle this, whether they consider this and maybe the final reading and waive the first reading. But it is law. We just want to get it on the books.
I'll move to approve the revisions to the graduation credit. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, effectively we'll make the final then, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Sorry.
I would like to say I appreciate you looking at the other alternative courses out there. Because, as you said, I didn't know the number was 92% are already doing it. But it is nice to talk to those kids that maybe aren't as strong in math and the technical education side. It's a great avenue for those kids to be able to pursue. So I appreciate you doing that.
And the percentage could go up when they recognize that that is a need for the math course. So,
That's great.
thank you.
Thank you. Before you, you have some recommended changes. These are on the advice of our attorneys. We experienced a bit of an issue this past year after the board passed salary increases for our teachers. And the advice from our attorneys was to get this language into our handbook so it is official and employees know about it on the front end, because that was our issue, that employees that resigned really had no way of knowing that the salary increase wouldn't be awarded if it didn't come back. And so by making sure that people know it on the front end, we don't have a legal issue as far as a wage claim. So this language is presented based on the attorney's recommendations. If approved tonight, I'll get it into the handbook in the next few days and then get a note out to the staff so that they're aware of the change and they can plan accordingly. And then there was one other little cleanup item there where I don't know why it said access to electronic records under direct deposit. It really has nothing to do with direct deposit. I'm going to do that.
I will move it.
A motion?
I'll second it. I'll second.
A motion and a second, any discussion?
I do have a question that I think the board should consider at some point, maybe not right now, but when I read through this again late this afternoon, I like the language in there about people resigning their positions. I understand that. But do we differentiate between a resignation and someone who retires after 15 years in the district or more? And I think we should visit that as, you know, whether we would withhold that if they're retiring that year should be, you know, as opposed to just resigning and moving to another district. I think it would be worth us to have that discussion at some point, whether we would waive that.
This definitely explicitly says resign, so I think the language would allow for that. I felt that retirees should get that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way I read it too.
Okay.
We have that flexibility.
All right, good.
Do you need to tighten that up a little bit to
Well, I
specifically
just
say
know
that?
if it's, you know, if legally resign is different than
The lawyer
retire.
said so,
you know.
right?
Thanks for the
The
lawyer.
paid lawyer said that, this is right.
You can always further clarify if you like, but I think this
No,
language
it's
means
fine.
exactly
It's
what.
understood.
I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, that's fine, as long as we, I think it's good for us to even visit it now and say that is our intent, that people who retire from the district would not be.
Right.
So let the record reflect, we have two legal opinions on this.
Oh, Jack's here.
All right, so motion, and a second, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, and now we're moving on to item M, and we're going to talk about open enrollment seats for 2014-15. Joe?
Thank you. Going into the open enrollment season, the school board does have to approve the number of seats they will allocate to open enrollment students. Looking at last year's, or what was last year's recommendation for the current year, we had 53 students, 53 seats that we allocated for open enrollment. Going into the 2014-15 school year, we are recommending 53 seats. To look at and try to place that, there's a chart there on the page. We look at this from a current staffing and a current resident district perspective, district resident perspective, as we go through and look at these numbers. Based off of the charts there, we're recommending seats in the following grades: grade 2, grade 3, grade 6, and grade 8. The other grades based off of resident district enrollment and students who are already here through open enrollment, we are filling those grades. We're not recommending taking any seats in that area. Additionally, looking at our special education numbers on the second page of the memo, I'm recommending that we close the areas of autism, cognitive disabilities, and emotional and behavioral disabilities in the district. Our current district enrollment is puts us in a position where those programs are full at this time. We have appropriate staffing to address the students that we have here currently in the Cedarburg schools. Additionally, I'm asking or requesting that we set up a waiting list at each grade level to make adjustments to based off of resident enrollment.
So that would not be closed, the special education, if someone were to move into the district, right? That's just for the open enrollment seats, correct?
For open enrollment, anybody who moves into the district district, we always have space to accommodate residents. For students wishing to apply through open enrollment, though, we are saying that we are full at this time.
I have one question now, because I had someone that called me. If we have someone that's building a house in the district, but they're not gonna be a resident in it, and they want their child to start knowing they'll be moving in, do we make any exception if there's an NC?
Through the state of Wisconsin, there are a number of tuition waivers that can be granted, and we would look at that on a case-by-case basis. Looking at the number of weeks it would take after the school year started, there is a 9-week waiver, and we could certainly look at any situation if a family were interested in that.
No question to kind of more curiosity than anything. The numbers in grades 3, 6, and 8 seem pretty high. You got 11 in grade 3, 10, 6, and 10 and 8, and then it's 2 in grade 2, and then zeros. Any idea what the cause of that, or is it just the way the numbers played out?
At the elementary level, we referenced our class size, our classroom guidelines, and we wanted to set these seats at a position where we were opening them up to kids who could come to us. However, making sure that we were staffing within those guidelines at the time. If we have, looking at grade 3, for instance, if we have a number of families that move into the district at grade 3, we're setting this so that we can accommodate resident enrollments.
Are we at the kind of the high end of the guidelines, or the low end, or between? Are we targeting
The low mid to the guidelines.
Just a follow-up to that, and I'll use grade 3 for an example. Assuming that we would have 11 children who apply for open enrollment, the following year, what happens to those children?
They're students in our district. They have to indicate that they're interested in coming back to Cedarburg, and that is it. When they transition from grade 5 to grade 6, they would reapply for open enrollment, but since we've had that seat for them, we consider them a student. And the same thing happens then when kids go from grade 8 to grade 9.
Can you speak a little bit, let's say we have 100 applicants, how you come down to 3?
The open enrollment process, we get the applications in either in the mail or through the state computer system, and I could expand on that a little bit. We take all of those names and we do a random draw. It's completely fair to all who apply for it. All kids who apply would be considered in those seats. When we look then at that special education recommendation, we would request all student records for the students, and the kids' records would be presented to us, and we would evaluate them based on how we would provide services to those students.
So parents find out about the opportunities through the state.
The information is going to be posted on the state this year, the state website this year, yes.
I have something to drill into here with a question, but when I looked at it, and I don't know the numbers, but I was a little surprised at kindergarten, because I thought our enrollment had gone down. I always looked at that as our kindergartens were not equaling our senior classes, so therefore enrollment goes down as they matriculate through. But can you speak to that a little bit, why we would say 0 at the kindergarten level?
And I would ask Karen to please jump in whenever she has something to add to this. Every year, and Karen went this year and has gone in the previous years, she's attended a forecasting model, which is put on, I believe, by Bayer, and they look at resident district enrollment, and they try to predict where kids are going to be at. Kindergarten is the greatest unknown for us as a school district, because we have kindergarten registration, which I believe is in 2 weeks. So we have to set this seat now without really knowing who is going to be here. Again, to want to accommodate the kids who are going to live in the Cedarburg schools, we're recommending that at 0 at this time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, just because it says 0 doesn't mean we can't take more waiting. You said the waiting list.
There is a waiting list that we would establish.
So we would take more if we had room and we thought it was best for the district.
Whatever is best for the district would be the direction.
These are more or less minimums.
But these are the guidelines. So for instance, if we were to say kindergarten, we're going to accept 1, then we open ourselves up. If we go past our recommendation, and that waiting list then at kindergarten could be completely exhausted. So we want sure that we're sticking to our recommendations.
And we'll re-examine, we always re-examine it when we have the February enrollment, and then, as Joel said, if we like one, then we look how many people apply.
So when looking at these numbers, we had some instances over the last couple of years where we had class sizes that were getting close to the top of board policy. So you obviously took that into account when you went through this exercise, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We looked at all of the class sizes, and for instance, in grade 3, where it looks like we'd be accepting a lot of kids, I believe we have 8 third-grade classes right now in the district. So I mean, if you were to try to spread those 8 kids across the district, that would be 1 kid per class, 1.5 kids per kid. That's all.
We stayed at the very lowest end of the guidelines this year.
Great.
I'll move to approve the open enrollment seats for 2015 school year as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion?
It's for 2014-15?
Yeah, 2014.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Conrad. Thank you, Todd. All right, Dr. Lamberson, superintendent notes.
I'd like to turn this over to Todd. We'd like to make a presentation to you, an update regarding the literacy collaborative. And I'll just turn it over to Todd this time.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We're going to show PowerPoint, so
Yeah, I'm moving.
That way.
Joe is handing out 3 handouts, and we're going to reference those handouts during the course of this presentation this evening. I'm excited to provide you with an update on our Literacy Collaborative. And if you recall, the board approved the Literacy Collaborative back in May of 2013. And since then, we've been on a very ambitious agenda to provide the training necessary and set up the circumstances for us to have a successful launch of the Literacy Collaborative. And this evening, we have some special visitors here to present, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves as we work through this PowerPoint. We'll take about 15 minutes to do this, and then we'll open up for questions and comments at the end. I want to provide a brief overview of the Literacy Collaborative and what exactly is it. And I think the first line really summarizes it. It's a comprehensive school reform project designed to improve the reading, writing, and language skills of kindergarten through 8th grade students. That's a significant statement, because what we're talking about in this initiative is a transformation of our practices in literacy. And when I say literacy, that obviously includes reading, writing, and language skills. Some key components that we should be aware of: that the Literacy Collaborative is a dynamic, long-term professional development commitment to our literacy coaches. It's school-based. Literacy coaches are trained in research-based methods, and we're going to get into some of the details of the training that they've received over the course of this past summer and this school year, and training that they still have yet to receive. One key aspect of this is the ongoing professional development to implement research-based approaches in lab classrooms. When we say lab classrooms, each of our coaches are assigned to a room, generally a classroom this year, and they are working collaboratively with that teacher. And so the coaches are providing or receiving professional development on how to provide that research-based practices to the cooperating teachers. So there's multiple levels of professional development that are going on. Our coaches are receiving it, and then our coaches are providing it to the cooperating teacher. Ultimately, the goal is to significantly raise the achievement level of all students in the area of literacy. That's where we are heading, and that's an ambitious goal, and we are going to make that happen. What are some of the key aspects of the Literacy Collaborative, the main pieces of this initiative is it's research and theory-based practices. Often you hear of individuals going and receiving professional development, and they come back and it's kind of a one-shot, and they provide, and they take what they get and they apply it, and they don't necessarily maybe revisit it, and there is an ongoing support. What the Literacy Collaborative is all about is ongoing professional development. They're literacy coaches, and when you think about what a coach does, they use research and theory, best practices to elevate the game of those that they work with, and that's exactly what our coaches are doing. And you can see the other key pieces of it. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but the second one is certainly an important one. Continuous assessment to inform and support instruction. You hear about continuous improvement, and that's truly what the Literacy Collaborative is about. Continuously assessing our practices and modeling what we want our students to do, and that's assess themselves and make certain they're looking at their progress and they are adjusting and knowing and taking ownership for their learning. So that's a key piece. And the third one I'll just mention is the comprehensive instructional framework. When we talk about the Literacy Collaborative, we are talking about a comprehensive framework that's going to impact all classrooms K-8. And this is an initiative that has significant breadth and depth. And in all my years in education, I have not been a part of an initiative that's going to impact instructional practices the way this will. I'm very excited about it. We have the elementary principals here, and as well as Tony, Webster principal, to show their support and demonstrate their commitment to this. And they have received training as well. And we are all in this together as a team, and we understand the significance of this and how it's going to be a game-changing initiative this year and for subsequent years. What does this look like in the classroom? Candy Gibson is the Thorson Elementary principal, and she's going to take you through this slide and start talking about the details. What does it look like in the classroom? I'm talking big picture, the vision, the components, and now we're going to talk about what does it look like, and then we're going to have the literacy coaches even boil it down to more detail. Candy.
So with the goal to significantly raise the achievement of all the students, the Literacy Collaborative Framework really provides that structure and that support for increased learning opportunities. Within the classroom, each day the lessons will consist of opportunities for learning in reading, writing, as well as word study. Teachers provide that direct instruction to guide the students in acquiring those strategies for maintaining fluency, but also text comprehension and vocabulary development through a variety of self-selected books and teacher-selected materials. Teachers provide that direct instruction to guide students in acquiring strategies for maintaining fluency, text comprehension, vocabulary development. I just lost my place, I'm sorry. These skills are applied for both fiction and nonfiction texts, and during the writing workshop, students develop writing skills as well as strategies, and they learn the craft of writing. And they learn to use writing as a tool for learning as well as for communication. The students learn to write for sustained periods of time. They explore a lot of different genres as well as formats for a variety of range of purposes as well as for a variety of audiences. The instruction within this framework moves from demonstration and explicit teaching as well as to guided practice and independent problem solving. The word study, in the word study, they develop or they do investigations. They investigate the meaning and the structure of words and the conventional use of the written language. Although this is a learning year for all coaches, teachers, administrators, it's really been exciting to watch the changes that have been taking place in the classroom, particularly with the students. And as we learn more and more about this and watch the changes in the classroom, it's really a very exciting time for all of us. I'd like to introduce Barbara Donaldson, who is our literacy coach at
Thanks, Candy. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you today. I've really seen a great improvement in our students, and I hope that you get just a little flavor of what that looks like. I'm here to talk about the paradigm shift. I also want to just recognize Jane Polk, principal at Parkview. and thank her for her support as I move forward.
You're welcome.
So there is a huge paradigm shift as we move from a traditional model into the literacy collaborative model. It's not only in instruction and learning, but also in moving toward a coaching model. If when you think of the traditional model, I like to think of it as kind of like taking a tour of a cave. You know, you have a group of people. In the traditional model, you're just kind of walking in, kind of looking around, saying, oh gosh, this is great, and then kind of leaving. And that's how it is, or has been for our students. They kind of read a book, they're checking off, I've read so many pages, I've got these number of minutes done, and then they're kind of just leaving that behind. In the literacy collaborative model, it's more like you take the kids into a cave, and then you give them the tools to explore, and you say, you know, I expect you to dig deep, I expect you to get your hands dirty. I want you to get those gems of knowledge as you read and write. And so this shift takes us kind of from that look and see, sort of a superficial learning, into really deep learning. The first thing in the traditional model, we go from teacher who's responsible for all the learning and making all the learning decisions to students who are those active participants. And we are expecting them to help set their own learning goals and evaluate their own learning and become a community of literacy learners together. And not only are they respecting their own learning, but they're learning to respect the learning of others. If you ask any student in my classroom who's responsible for your learning, they would all answer, I am. The second thing up there is where the teacher imparts the knowledge. And in the past, the teacher has been the keeper of the knowledge. And it's almost like that person has had like a pitcher of information or knowledge, and they just pour that knowledge into the heads of the students, and they just kind of passively sit there and kind of get it. But not so anymore with the literacy collaborative model. Students are expected to construct their own meaning. If you have read the book, Becoming a Nation of Readers, Anderson and his associates say, they are co-authors, say that reading is a process of constructing meaning from written text, a complex skill requiring coordination of a number of interrelated sources of information. So we're asking students as they engage in reading, not only just to read, but to discuss their thinking. We have an interactive read aloud where the teacher reads the book, but then the students share in pairs or triads, or even with the whole group, they're thinking about what's happening in the text. Then, not only that, students are also expected as they read to share their thinking in writing. And they have a journal which goes back and forth weekly with the teacher where they read and then they express what they've read and they're thinking about their reading in that journal, and then the teacher writes back and kind of probes and asks questions for deeper thinking. You've got a handout that looks like this, and in the past we've a lot of times asked our students to do kind of these lower level thinking skills, which are thinking within the text, things like retelling the story or summarizing. But now we're going to a whole new level. If you look down here, this blue part of the surface is thinking beyond the text, where we're asking students, even as low as 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, to do those higher level thinking skills like inferring, synthesizing, and making connections. And then thinking about the text, where they're asked to analyze the writer's craft and critique what has the writer done. So it's really exciting to see them grow, and I'm actually learning along with them. Okay. The next thing is in the past, reading for assignments. The teacher decided what to read, when to read it, why you're reading it. Now, in the Literacy Collaborative, we're hoping that we're building a community of readers where they become lifelong readers and they know how to pick a just right book. But they're reading for the same reasons we do, for enjoyment, for their own interests, for learning about self, and for gaining knowledge. Writing in the past.
So what does that look like? I mean, I know from my own experience at home with my first grader and 4th and 5th, I mean, getting them a book that they like and keep, or getting them into a series and then they don't like it anymore, and then, really keep them engaged in the book. That's kind of a battle. I would think, how do you pick that book that's right? How do you facilitate that? Or you put the onus on them to do it? How do you make them, allow them to enjoy it? I mean, I would, because really, if I'm reading everything that I want to read, it might not be, something that's in the library, so I might have to go to the public library, or to the tablets that the Chromebooks allow us to access more reading materials. Is that one of the resources?
Well, right now, at least at the 5th grade level, we have students who are bringing in like their own Kindles and Nooks, and they're reading, you know, being able to read their books there. Part of it is that it's kind of like students are becoming, or hopefully, learning to know themselves as a reader. So if you ask my husband what he reads, it's totally boring to me, like how to build a kayak, and you know, I'm like into like historical fiction. So students, hopefully, you know, we want them to be exposed to many genres, but on the other hand, we want them to learn what do they like to read. And so I think as we move forward with those initiatives for like the Chromebooks and things like that, I think that more, you know, materials will be available. Right now, students can either read from the classroom library, public library, or, you know, an electronic book. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, we struggle with that at home sometimes, you know, finding the books that keep them engaged, and especially before we go on a long road trip.
Yeah, well, sometimes the books are too hard for kids, you know, at 5th grade, they want to look like a good, you know, look like they can read Harry Potter, or really, they should be reading Magic Schoolhouse or something like that. So that electronic device, like a Nook or Kindle, is actually really good for those kids that no one knows if the book they're reading is little or big. So I hope that answered your question. If not, they can jump in later and help me out. Okay, so writing was kind of the same thing, where it was definitely teacher-driven. And a really different change is, in the past, we've expected a perfect writing product at the end. And the teacher was more like an editor when the writing assignment was turned in. Now, as we move toward the literacy collaborative model, not only are we having students hopefully think of themselves as writers, they're getting a writer's notebook where there's seeds of writing are being put in there. Then they have a choice, what will I write about that I'm passionate about? And then as a teacher, instead of just editing the paper when it comes in, every time you meet with them, you're trying to lift their writing a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. So it's more a process of learning to write than just like a perfect paper at the end where it's really the teacher's work. So it's really exciting, and the kids love it. They absolutely love it. They just are totally engaged, and they're like, so much talk about it. Okay, sorry. Okay, so our goal is so that these students think of themselves as writers within their community of writers. I don't know, the next thing up there is learning for tests, grades, and college acceptance. I think our board sponsored the Road to Nowhere movie, which reminds me so much of this, where students in high school are getting so burned out with, you know, I'm taking this course because I want to get in this college. They hate the subject, they have no interest in it, they study for the test to get the A, and that's it. The literacy collaborative model is hopefully moving students toward being lifelong self-directed learners. You know, who, because they have choice, they have collaboration in their own interests, they learn to value learning for learning itself, not just to get that grade. Our goal should be to, this is a quote from Fontes and Pinnell, engage our students in help them have a literate life from childhood to adolescence and into adulthood. And finally, I know I'm going over my time limit, sorry, Todd.
My fault.
You know, the really cool thing is we're moving from the teacher as an independent decision maker, where you're kind of an island, we use the basal to drive instruction and so on. We're moving toward a shared decision-making model where we have that trained coach who comes alongside the teacher as like an expert other, and not to tell them, you have to do this and this, but to think together, to reflect, to problem solve, and to think how can we raise the level of instruction for all our students. We want to build a culture of learners, readers, writers, thinkers, and problem solvers, but we as teachers want to model that for our students, and so I hope that this will help us do that. On that note, I'm going to ask Amy Kahn, a wonderful teacher from Thorson, who teaches 4th grade, to come and share her experiences.
Good evening. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to work with Mrs. Rose at Thorson, and I'm lucky to have my students experience this literacy collaborative this year in this framework. The framework immerses the children and the teachers in rich literature that allows the students to have meaningful conversations. It's amazing the issues that my students have already had this year. We've talked about friendship and happiness and hardships and struggles, and the students just love it. We had just read The Cats in Krasinski Square just the other day, and it is actually talking about the struggles of the people in the Warsaw Ghetto and Jewish resistance in Poland, just from this book. And from this book, then we led into The Life of Anne Frank. And the students just enjoyed learning about her struggles and her life. I didn't realize how much they were interested into Anne Frank's life until I saw a parent at a store, and she told me that her son didn't want to get picked up that day for an appointment because he had to read the end and get to the end of the story of Anne Frank. So one of my students put it best in her letter to the teacher, and it's hard to see up there, I can read it to you. It says, "Dear Mrs. DeRosa, I'm really glad you introduced me to a different genre because I was really missing out. In comparison to other years, I see the students more motivated to read a wide variety of books. They're excited to share their thoughts about the stories with other students, and they love to recommend their books that they read. When we asked one day how many books they read from another student who recommended to them, almost all the hands went up. So they really enjoy talking to other students and telling them what they're learning. And then the other students take that and then read the books. Cedarburg students love to enjoy to read, and I continue to see that. But I also see our students this year comparing texts and analyzing characters and voicing their opinion. I believe this comes from our daily read aloud, which is similar to these books that we read in their daily read aloud, and all the discussions we have in class. These are those higher level thinking skills that we want our students to have, and this new framework for instruction has really made it possible, all kinds of ways of getting our students to think and to respond to the text. Part of the framework was talking, again, you talked about the writing workshop. This framework, and the students are writing for a long period of time every day. And we've gotten many comments from parents that the children just love this time. They can write, and they write every day. And the choice is the big part of this framework. It gives the students freedom to write about subjects that are meaningful to them. We had talked about how writers take their meaningful experiences. And so the students have a chance to do that too. They practice it every day. We had an in-service earlier this year about the writer's workshop, and the presenter showed examples of writing samples and how they'd improved. And I really didn't think that our students could improve that much, but one of the papers that we passed out has proof of that. If you turn that yellow sheet on the other side, where it has like two stories next to each other, there's a student who recently moved into our district, and she had a chance to write a choice again, to write about her family, which was very important to her. She struggled putting everything down and had difficulty with the organization of her piece. She was very nervous about her writing, and she was not very confident at all. In the past, writing was just not a positive experience for her. You can see her first writing piece, and it's called All About Allie, which is her sister. And this was produced after lots and lots of revision and editing and talking through. Then next to that, onto the right, you can see a little later, it's her next piece. After she had watched Mrs. DeRosa's mini lessons on paragraphing and organization, her next piece was about, again, another important person in her life, her sister, all about Ava. You can see our ideas are organized and her paragraphs help the reader understand what she's talking about. Her second piece did not need almost any revising because she applied those mini lessons that Mrs. DeRosa had presented in class. She was so proud of her work. And then the next example of how amazing this program is the poem that's on the back. I don't think I would ever have been able to see how gifted one of my students were. This student has a lot of difficulty with spelling and grammar, but poetry was that right avenue for him to express his thoughts. In the past, we have written poetry, but we usually pick one style of poetry, and everyone writes to that style. The Literacy Collaborative Framework has the students exploring poetry, and then they get to choose again, choice, to what kind of poem they like to write. This student chose to write a descriptive poem about the earth. It is beautifully done with impressive word choice. I'll take a minute to read it, it's just really neat. His parents were quite impressed at conference time to read it, and they actually didn't believe that he wrote it. They were very surprised. And the student has gained confidence in himself as a writer. Along with the students improving, I think my teaching has improved. I'm much more aware of a variety of literature and how to use that literature to allow the students to think more deeply and to analyze the text. I'm learning the questions to ask the students to promote thinking about the text, what's both within the text, and beyond the text, and about the text. So I'm very impressed with the Literacy Collaborative Framework and all the improvements I've seen already, and it's only halfway through the year. I can't wait to see what happens next.
I have a quick question. When you talk about reading aloud, is that you reading to the students taking turns reading aloud?
This one, the read aloud, is the teacher. And then we stop very often, this is yours who stops very often, and ask some of the deeper level questions. And then students turn and talk and discuss with each other. And they talk about some of the issues that come up in the stories.
Do you ever go around the room just with the kids as they read aloud? Just out of curiosity, I was just wondering what reading aloud does for comprehension. Are the two tied to each other?
A main goal of the interactive read aloud is being able to read a text to the students that's above their actual reading level, so that, because most kids can understand text that's more difficult than what they can read. So that's the goal of the interactive read aloud, but there are several other times throughout the day where children are reading text on their own or in group. We typically don't do what you're referring to as round robin reading, where one student takes a turn reading one at a time. And there's a lot of reasons why. One being that the kids, if they know they're taking turns, are waiting, trying to plan out what paragraph is there so they can rehearse it so they don't sound bad.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So we generally are trying to get away from that as much as we can. This interactive read aloud time is a very central part of the day. Lots of things, lots of mini lessons get based around what is read in that read aloud. And when we, when I kind of think about Kevin's question about getting kids interested, a lot of our kids are getting so interested in the topics that we're talking about from that read aloud, and then it's really spurring their interest in discussion with each other. So when he asked that question, the thing that came up in my mind was getting them to talk about text together. I mean, if I could think of my own kids and if they were struggling with what to read, I think the most motivating thing is having someone to talk about it with. And so if they're taking a long car trip somewhere and you can't get them interested in anything, try reading it with them so that you can talk about what's going on. And that's really at the heart of this program, is all the discussion that happens in the classroom.
And Mrs. Burrow says next, we're talking about the coaching role.
Wow, Amy gave me so much credit, but I want to give her a lot of credit right back. She's been doing so much conferring with the students in our classroom because, and I'm going to get into, Todd, if you'll put the next slide, please. I'm going to get into the role of the coach and the teacher here next. And I'll get to the cooperating teacher's role in just a second, but it's been an awesome opportunity to work with Amy, and I think I speak for all the coaches who have been placed in the classroom with a cooperating teacher. It's been a phenomenal experience so far. I'm going to talk briefly about the role of the coach and the teacher both this year and in the future, because this year will look a little different than the coming years. This year we, the three coaches and I are fortunate enough to be in training through the Ohio State University. So we've taken 2 trips so far to Columbus, nice 8 or 9 hour drive together. And it's been an amazing opportunity. We've learned so much there, and we've been able to come back, pick up where we left off in the classroom, and continue building in the new elements of the components of the model that we've learned. So that's been a really nice experience. The coaches and I all, as Todd touched on, teach a literacy block in myself and the other 2 elementaries. We're teaching a 2.5 hour block. And then the middle school, Bunny is doing 94 minutes. We have that opportunity to teach what we're going to be teaching our teachers to do next year. So it kind of gives us that credibility that we can say, well, this is what I did, this is how I made it work. Because a lot of the things that we're going to be having them work on next year are going to be new. So it's going to help us a lot to be able to say that We've been there and this is what works. The cooperating teacher also has a role in the Literacy Collaborative, and that is as an active learner. We're each so fortunate to be working with a great cooperating teacher who offers us a great perspective. The cooperating teacher doesn't have an extra long plan time, doesn't check emails during class, but she's very actively involved in participating in the whole group conversations, taking notes on instruction to talk about later. She is participating with small group instruction and taking notes on observations of student learning. She's doing a lot of the conferring I was mentioning earlier. Much of the planning that we do, we're doing with the cooperating teacher. My cooperating teacher has, and as I'm sure all the others have, has started to take on some guided reading groups as we're doing one-on-one assessments with kids. And then a very key role they have is when we are gone for those weeks and the twice a month webinars that we participate in, she or he takes over the class. So that's a big part of their job this year. Teachers at all the buildings in K-8 right now this year are participating in book studies that will provide a foundation for the learning that we're planning for next year. We as coaches are collaborating this year, planning modules of that professional development that will be delivered next year. And so, if we look into the future, beginning really at the end of this year, the coaches will start to provide that 40 hours of professional development for the teachers that will train them in how to implement this model in their classrooms beginning next year. In addition to the professional development next year, the coaching will begin. And like some of my colleagues have mentioned earlier, that will be where the teacher and the coach come alongside each other and begin to think and plan and work together to deliver that instruction and raise the level of student learning in the classrooms. Teachers in the intermediate and middle school will begin to implement Literacy Collaborative Framework next year. And we're planning that coaching will be a continuous, ongoing effort from next year on, so that as a district we'll be continually improving our literacy practice. That's the main goal, the main shift that this model provides us with. And with that, I would like to introduce Ann Kasuba from West Lawn.
Thank you. I'd like to give you the appreciation of listening to us present this. My coordinating principal is Dr. Sanders, who has been an amazing support for me also. I know we're all very grateful for the support of our principals. As Gretchen mentioned, it was mentioned earlier, this is a long-term model that we are taking on here. And our basic timeline, just for the next 5 years, there's just a brief overview here. Years 1 through 5, this year being year 1, and we've got the coach and principal trainings. Year 2, doing some training with teachers and the classroom teachers implementing. And then year 3, continuing with the implementation of the balanced literacy framework, and continuing on through year 4 and year 5 and beyond, along with years 3 and 4 doing the framework. There's going to be professional development provided by the coaches, and then the support of the literacy coaches working along classroom teachers. So if we move into a little bit more detail, year 1, these are some more specific things that we've been doing. We've got the training going on, as Gretchen talked about. The principals were trained, as Scott mentioned. We are focusing on our writing workshop K through 5. We are doing the book study that goes along with that. Literacy coaches, the professional development with grades 3 through 8 on the interactive reading log will be towards the end of the year. Our book study that we're doing, K through 8, there's a book study going on. K through 5 is concentrating on writer's workshop. 6 through 8 is doing a genre study. And we are basically working this whole year to building capacity in the writing workshop and helping teachers gain some background for that. Literacy coaches will also be doing the professional development with grades 3 through 8 classroom teacher expectations is that they will be doing a book study and implementing some components of the writer's workshop. 3rd through 8th grade classroom teacher expectations. They will be implementing the balanced literacy framework, getting 32 hours of professional development along with the support of the literacy coach. Our professional development is going to include some benchmark assessments, which is the running record assessment that we use to help determine a child's independent instructional and frustrational reading levels to help tailor make our instruction. And additional sessions of professional development through next year will include readers and writers workshop, guided reading, word study, book clubs, and literature circles.
So that professional development that Ann is talking about, that's PD that's being provided by our coaches to our teachers. So they are going through training now and learning all that needs to be provided and presented to our teachers in those professional development sessions.
Through Ohio State.
Through Ohio State.
So you guys went there, and now are you doing webinars with them?
Yep.
Going into that the model going forward, or?
Through the rest of this year, yes, twice a month we have our webinars. We do have 2 other full weeks this school year that we will be traveling there. And as Gretchen mentioned, we are, as we go through this year, we have been working on these professional development modules. They're part of our assignment as our coursework this year. Because we've been developing each module that will be worked on with classroom teachers next year for 3rd through 8th grade.
We are also being coached by Ohio State, and they are making 2 site visits to Cedarburg, and it's a great opportunity for us to watch them coach us in action, and in turn we will coach others next year. So it's just sort of this full circle opportunity.
And then moving on to year 3, the literacy coaches are going to continue to implement the literacy block, except that we would most likely be doing it in the K through 2 classroom, while we conduct our cross training as a primary coach. Our training is as an intermediate coach now for the 3 of us and middle school for Bunny. We will be cross training in year 3 as a primary coach. We will continue to be doing coaching responsibilities for 3rd through 5th grade. And the K through 2 classroom teacher expectations while we're cross-training is that they continue to do a book study, and towards the end of the year, they'll be getting the 8 hours of professional development. Sort of the same kind of professional development for K through 2 teachers that 3 through 8 teachers are going to be getting next year. So it's kind of moving on down to the K through 2 teachers so that they have the same background and experiences that our 3 through 5 teachers will get, or 3 through 8 teachers actually, I should say. And then the 3rd through 8th grade classroom teacher expectations, they're going to continue to implement the balanced literacy framework. They will be getting 20 hours of additional professional development alongside the literacy coach with the support of the literacy coach. And moving on to year 4, literacy coach will continue to implement literacy block in a classroom, and the other part of the day will be as literacy coach, K through 5 for 3 of us, and then Bunny will continue on as the middle school literacy coach. K through 2 classroom teachers will implement the framework. They will receive the other 32 hours of professional development, and then 3 through 8 classroom teachers are just going to continue to refine the delivery of balanced literacy framework. The support of the literacy coach will be available for K through 5 teachers at the elementary level and 6 through 8 at the middle school. And we don't have a year 5 one up there, but years 5 and on, because as this was mentioned, this is a long-term, ongoing professional development model, and it just continues on from year to year after year 4. And getting to work with classroom teachers and supporting them and refining their teaching in terms of literacy is really something I think we're all looking forward to. I am now going to introduce Bunny, who is going to give you some information on the next slide.
And I would just like to acknowledge my principal, Tony Joseph, and all of his wonderful support. It has been said that we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. We live in the information age, one that's characterized by constant change, which only highlights the urgency to transition from a traditional model that is increasingly irrelevant to one that will give us that paradigm shift that we've discussed this evening, and have also recently announced with our new learning initiative. While we prepare our students for many future unknowns, we do know where we're headed. We're guided by Wisconsin's portrait of a literate student that is outlined in the Common Core state standards and ensures that all students graduate college and career ready. And furthermore, we're guided by our own Cedarburg mission statement that really just kind of surrounds us with where we're headed. As teachers, we really long to embrace instructional practices and prepare our students to be those lifelong learners who will really excel and succeed in these challenging and changing times. As literacy coaches in training, we are confident that the literacy collaborative model is the one that will indeed help us make this transition. It will help us make the shift by elevating and improving our own practice as coaches, the practices of our staffs in our buildings, and ultimately the practice and just the achievement of all of our students, all within a supportive environment that promotes a continuous, sustainable culture of learning. So on behalf of all of us coaches, we would like to express our sincere gratitude for this just incredible opportunity to be trained in this model. And we would also like to extend an invitation to you to please come and visit anytime and to kind of see this action, or see this model in action. It's really, truly been transformational. And as Todd mentioned at the beginning, we really see it as a game changer. We're excited about our future work. We're excited about the opportunities that we have ahead of us to teach, to learn, and reflect alongside our colleagues, and most importantly, alongside our students. So thank you.
I just wanted to say just a few words. There's a third handout that you received, and it's front and back, and one side is writing and the other is reading. And it's, you can see that there's two columns. One says increase this and decrease that. When we talk about a game-changing type of initiative, this is what we're talking about. Literacy instruction will never look the same in Cedarburg again. We are moving into a new era here in Cedarburg, one that's going to elevate and engage all of our students. And Bunny's, I do hope you take Bunny's invitation to heart and consider visiting a classroom, because you will see engagement at a level that you have not seen in classrooms before. All students are interacting with each other, interacting with the text, interacting with the writing. It's a phenomenal experience, and I hope all of you have an opportunity to see how literacy instruction is changing and will change for years to come in Cedarburg. As you can see by the timeline, there's some intense things going on here in the district. It started small, with the coaches receiving their training, the principals receiving their training, and it's kind of a slow release mechanism that's happening now. They're in the lab classroom, they're working with a designated teacher, and then it's going to slowly expand over the next 5 years. And so we get to a point where everyone has been part of the training. And we are changing the thinking of our teachers and the practices. We're changing the thinking and practices of our coaches. And we are now, if you envision filling the picture with best practices that are research-based. Not that we didn't have those in place before, but now we are honing in on those and capitalizing on them and making certain that it's pervasive across the district. And that's something that most districts can't say. We should be proud, and I have to commend the administration and the school board for being so aggressive and progressive in their thinking to embark upon this initiative. Having a literacy coach available in a building to work with teachers to improve the practices of that teacher and ultimately the achievement of the students is very progressive thinking, and that's where education is headed, and we are right there where we need to be. You combine this initiative with the one-on-one, the learning initiative we have in place, or we're embarking upon, we're going to elevate the practices of our teachers and the achievement of our students to an unprecedented level. I believe that, and we all believe that. And I'm excited and grateful and thankful that the board is supporting this initiative and will continue to support it in years to come. Any questions that you may have of our team? And I know it was a lengthy presentation, but I think it was important.
15 minutes.
We're teachers.
Yeah. It was lengthy, but I think it's imperative that we understand just the commitment that the district has made to this framework and now and for the next 5 years and years beyond that. So it was time well spent, and I think it was imperative that you got a deeper understanding of what the literacy framework is all about. Thank you. Yes, please.
Question. As board members and probably community members too, we tend to do the same thing. Sometimes we look at things at like 30,000 feet, and we say, okay, we want every student to read really well. We want every student to do well in math, social studies, whatever. But when you talk about reading, it's such an important thing. The kids get this because they can't move through high school and into work if they don't understand reading. Writing is very, very important. I think you read a lot of things about college kids just aren't very good writers in general. So I commend you on that. The question I have is, the one slide that was up there, and we've talked about it at other levels too, we're kind of removing things from the teacher being the person responsible for all education to the student. We talked about it last month's board meeting too, where the students are starting to take some responsibility for that, which, some people would say, well, they just dump it off to the kids, and I know you're not doing that. My question is, how much extra time is that for you as teachers to get to know, some kids are going to be really shy and give up really easily, and say, I can't read, or I can't write, versus other kids just latch onto it and away they go. How much extra time is it for you as teachers compared to, say, 3 years ago?
I think teachers have always had students that, for whatever reason, weren't willing or this wasn't their thing to do. And I think that teachers have always been faced with, finding the right place for those kids to be doing the reading and writing. So I don't think that part of it is necessarily new. I think maybe it might be a little bit more of helping the students understand being self-guided. Because it is that the students constructing, their learning with the teacher's guidance. So they are responsible for their own learning, so I think it might be a little bit more along the lines of, showing the children how to be self-guided, how to find the books. And somebody who was talking about teaching them how to find the books that they like, Gretchen, was that you? I can't remember.
And Barbara and Amy.
But showing them how they are capable of doing that. And, it's, done, it can be done like in a mini lesson with the whole class, so that everybody is getting that. Or a strategy group, if you have a few children who need that, you do it as a strategy group and help guide them. So.
I would just like to say too, when we say that students are being responsible for their own learning, it's not like a free-for-all where you just go in the classroom and do it, just learn, you know what I mean? There's a lot of guidance from the teacher, but they actually are, since they're part of the decision-making process, we feel that it's a lot more valuable to them. But as for the time, in some ways it takes more time, but in some ways it takes less, because you would think that if you said to students, write for an hour, that they would just be off the wall. But I have really seen a huge shift in their engagement as they're writing, as they're reading, and so you have to build the groundwork, which takes time and sustain it, but the payoff is big.
And that's what you guys had done at the beginning of the school year, and set the stage and taught them the skills that they needed in order to be more self-directed.
There's so much differentiation built into this model, and I think that's where there is some time that it takes to differentiate, to plan that way, but because of that differentiation, teachers get to know their students so much more. I feel like I know this group of students better than I've ever known any group of students I've had in the past, because of the level of differentiation and because of the choice that is built in for students both with reading and with writing.
I
would think that would have to occur, that you know more about the
Yes.
students, because you're empowering them to do more, you have to know what they're doing, and checking on them, so I appreciate your efforts also.
Yeah. I didn't see the kid.
Yes,
Your hand was not lying.
You're next.
What kind of coaching or education is there for the parents? Because it seems to me like the parents wouldn't be used to this new way, and they would want to have some input or guidance or at least understanding of what to help the children in their self-direction. Is that something that they touch on in the program, or is that something you thought about?
I would say it may be built into the literacy, the word is escaping me, but there's a literacy team that's going to be just constructed within each building. And I think that might be something that gets looked at that point. Amy and I did send a parent survey out to our class a couple weeks ago, and I think that's a common theme that we learned too, that they did need some more
Yeah.
than we did there. So that was something that, you know, we really learned out of that experience, and I think that's a really good point, that we as a district team have to consider what we're going to, how we're gonna share with parents and change.
Yeah, because it's very different. I think most people would really appreciate it, but I think they would understand that actually we're invested in us.
But it was also interesting to read a lot of the comments that the parents were making, the changes that they saw in their own children at home. They're much more engaged, they're reading more often, they will put down a book, they're writing, they're sharing their writing with their parents. Those are just their observations so far.
I just want to thank everyone for being the champions of the program, and you guys have a lot of enthusiasm, and both things I heard about, I love seeing this stuff, you know, the examples, and to Mark's point, you know, talking about you guys reading, I think there's a lot of dignity in that for the student with the different levels and everything, and them comprehending the story more, and not worrying about reading next or how they're reading or all that anxiety that comes along with it. And I think another thing with the technology that we're having, you also mentioned that, you know, that no one has to know what you're reading. They don't have to see, you know, that you have a real thick Harry Potter book, you know, or, you know, House of Hades or whatever the kids are reading and all that stuff. You know, it can just be on a tablet. And we've talked about this before, but, you know, you can learn at different levels. No one has to see what you're doing. And I think that's really important. And the thing that I liked hearing the most was, you know, the kids getting better, but also, I don't know who said it, but you said it's making you a better teacher as well. And I think when you hear that, along with all this other stuff, it really sounds like this is really going well, and it's really nice to hear from the board and the parent perspective, so thank you.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you.
Couple things. The energy level, thank you. I mean, it reflected, you didn't even have to show, I guess, show me the examples. Your energy level, awesome. Just really lovely. I can see pictures.
We're really excited.
Somebody mentioned that Ohio State's coming here to visit Cedarburg. Is there anybody else in our surrounding district that's doing this or following who believe that you all a
Hortonville's coming to places.
Yeah, Hortonville, and then there's a, where is it called?
Athens, where it's like go downtown somewhere.
It's that where it is?
Sorry.
I'm from Athens. Chris is hometown.
You meant to say quaint.
It's just really cold.
But thank you, and Todd, your comments, we trust and we believe what you guys are doing. And just keep showing us and tell us where you want to go. And that's my view is you guys are finding new ways and creative ways to elevate the education to the students, and that's top priority. Thank you.
Before the group leaves, I want to thank the group as well. I spent 3 hours at Dorson yesterday. Gretchen, Amy, thank you for your willingness to come in. Superintendent, I know that was a little intimidating about coming into the class. Just so I could watch the sold before, but I'm over the top sold after you talk with the kids. Because the issue of reading is a skill necessary to be a competent, powerful writer and communicator, so that you can understand and be able to think critically about what's going on around you. And when I would visit with the students and sit next to them and ask them, in terms of the writing workshop time, what do they like best about what they're doing in terms of reading, writing, or word study? The boys told me, everyone told me, but especially the young men told me, I love writing. You have a hard time finding that in classrooms. Then you ask the boys, why do you like writing? Because I can write what I'm interested in. So, would you share with me what you're writing about? So each one of them would share, because they were in various stages. There were 2 drafts, if I remember correctly, and then there's a final draft, and there's a publish. And at each level of that writing, there's a personal contact with the teacher being able to revisit what that writing level is and what that student is trying to express, which is a powerful structure. And for the boys to be able to tell me, well, here's what I'm writing about, and I said, well, what you're typing, because they wanted to do that in terms of their interest in writing, seemed to be a little bit higher in terms of the type it out. I said, well, what you're writing for couple of the boys, I said, what you're writing is different than what you have on the paper in terms of your draft. Why are you changing it? And this is what a four fourth grade boys told me. I'm changing it because it's not powerful. Now, I mean, that's an amazing message for fourth grade. And so it was just really enjoyable to be able to see the interaction, both from coaches, but also it's a step out in terms of taking a risk in terms of teachers too, and it was really fun to see Amy's interaction with that. And we need to make sure that we support all of our teachers in terms of this phenomenal opportunity. But from a student's point of view, I was incredibly impressed and grateful for the opportunity that all of our kids will have as we continue to roll out. So thanks so much for coming tonight and for all your great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Stay warm. Athens is really cold.
Are you really?
Really ice fishes up there.
Athens, Greece. All right, so we are considering moving into executive closed session to consider administrative employees' performance evaluation, contract renewal or non-renewal, and compensation pursuant to sections 19.851C and E of Wisconsin statutes. Number 2, consider support staff employees' performance evaluation and compensation pursuant to section 19.851C and E of Wisconsin statutes. Consider a specific educator's performance evaluation, possible discipline, contract renewal or non-renewal, and compensation pursuant to section 19.851B and C of Wisconsin statutes, and to confer with legal counsel who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategies to be adopted with respect to mayor litigation pursuant to section 19.851G of Wisconsin statutes, and to review executive closed session minutes of October 29th and December 17th. I will now accept the motion to convene in closed session. Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.